What are the 3 different ways that you can address competition in your pitch deck story? Let's find out. Well, you told the bulk of your story. It's now time to address more of your audience's questions before they even ask. And one of the first questions people ask when they're trying to make a serious investment, a budget, or purchasing decision is, what other options do I have? Is this the best solution or offer? They need to make a quick yes, no, or maybe decision. So they need to know their options to ensure that they are making the best selection. So in this section, you'll get to talk about competition and help your audience make a faster decision. So more specifically, you're going to learn about how to conduct a competitive analysis, how to convey your competitive advantage to your market, and how to communicate your competitive approach to investors. So your target goal really for this section is to get more clarity on the competitive landscape and identify what makes you different or better so you can relate that information to your audience. Now, once again, keep your audience in mind. What you share might vary depending on who you are talking to. If you're talking to investors, they're trying to make sure that they are making the right investment, because investors get a lot of requests for their time and money. So they want to ask that question, why should I give you my money and not give it to someone else? So any data you can share here to show them why you are the best solution for them at this particular time would make sense. If you're talking to your market, they want to know, why should I buy your products or solutions? Or if you're talking to vendors and partners and suppliers and affiliates, they want to know, should I put my name behind this particular product, person, or service? Or is there something else that I should be representing instead? Because after all, their name and reputation is also on the line if they decide to do business with you. And for your teams, it's also about numbers. What do you want them to track, and what numbers should they be sharing? Now, to answer these questions, you need to dive a little bit deeper and divide the competition conversations into 3 main points. The first thing you need to answer is the competitive analysis, and that's something you need to know for yourself, which is who is offering similar solutions on the market. So you need that analysis for yourself and your team so you can start comparing yourself to others. The next step is the competitive advantage. Well, now that you know who else is offering a similar solution, now you need to convey the question of what makes your solutions different or better, and you want to help your audience know that right away. And next is the competitive approach, because markets are always changing, and chances are if you're successful, someone is going to come in and want to play in your space. So how do you stay competitive in a market that's always changing and where you have people coming in to play into your space? So these are the 3 main questions we need to be answering, and they all vary depending on who you are talking to. Now, before we dive a bit deeper, I want to bring up the big elephant in the room, and that is the uncomfortable feeling many people have about the word competition. Now, some careers and businesses are naturally competitive. For example, if you're in sports, if you're in politics or in corporate politics, chances are that competition mentality is always on the radar, because in circumstances like this, you only have one winner, and usually you might have the second and third place recognized, like gold, silver, and bronze medal kind of in the sports situation, or the one winning team who gets the sports cup. Or in politics, there's only one president that ends up winning. So these career options are very competitive. Now, on the extreme side, you have other career options which are very passive. You might find many people, they just go to their job, they do what they're told, they don't feel that they have to compete with other employees. You're just there. If you're serving burger, you're serving burgers. That's what it is. And then you have all the levels in between of people who feel less competitive and more competitive, but it is usually a tricky situation. And many people, you might find, don't like to talk about competition. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I'm asking my clients and we're working on their pitch decks, I try to ask them, well, who else is offering a similar solution? And I got surprised, because some people would get offended, some people will get all energized, and some people get all confused, like, what do you mean by competition? And when I ask them, so some people will just say, you know what, HWAYDA, we want to smash the competition. What are you even thinking? Our solution is so good, we're going into the market and we're going to smash that competition, thinking that the only way they can really win in business is if they shut everybody else down. And that might work in sports and in politics, but not necessarily in every case in business. And in other cases, I might have clients that say, HWAYDA, you know what? No one has done this before. This is so unique. It's so new, and no one has done this. And meanwhile, I start doing research as I'm talking to them, and I'm already seeing many people in the same space. And that's when I recognize that maybe they have not done the research, or they don't know what competition really means. And then I get people who just say, HWAYDA, you know what? I don't believe in competition. There's room for everyone on the planet to survive and thrive. And my answer to this here is, remember, this is not about you. This is about your audience. Now, maybe you might not believe in competition, but remember that your audience is trying to come up with this answer of yes, no, or maybe. Should they be buying from you? Should they be investing with you? So you need to help them reach that conclusion quickly. Now, the good news is that you don't necessarily have to be better. You can be different and still stand out. Now, better means it's superior in merit, rank, quality, quantity compared to someone else. Different can mean that you have something distinctive, it's unique, it's unusual, it's not unlike others, maybe in nature and form. It could be something simple as quantity or quality. Just making that slight difference can make an impact. So if the word competition makes you feel uncomfortable, that's okay. You can use the word different. Now, competition, as I mentioned a bit earlier, also affects your audience. Now, remember this brand archetype that I showed you earlier in the videos in the first segment of this masterclass. Now, the archetypes are characters that interact with each other to create that story. So how do you fit into your audience story? So, for example, if you're the sage and you're their guide, how do you help your audience become more competitive? Or if you're the hero for them, if you're the caregiver, so where do you fit into their story, and what are they trying to be? And if you want to help them make a faster decision, then you need to be answering these questions for them. More specifically, you need to be answering the hard question of how can my audience become more competitive by implementing my solutions, by using my products, by using my services, investing in my company, taking my courses, or any other thing that you are offering. So how can they be more competitive? Now, if you're thinking of it that way, then really it's not about you anymore, and you might find that competition conversation a bit more engaging and more meaningful. So now, as we dive into this competition story, there are four main competition categories that you need to be aware of. First, we've got the perfect competition, then a monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. Now, I know these are fancy words, but I promise you, once you see the big picture, it's going to make it much easier for you when you're addressing competition. So let's start with the perfect competition. Now, a perfect competition is when you have vendors who are selling identical products at similar prices. So the market share does not really influence the price. So if, for example, if you go to the farmer's market or the supermarket, chances are you're going to see similar vendors or similar products and solutions on the market, and they're usually priced equally. So everyone has an equal chance. So let's stick to the farmer's market. Let's say you go to a farmer's market and everyone is selling local apples or whatever the produce is in your area. And chances are many of the products look the same because the farmers are probably in a similar location. So it's going to be a very similar product. So the buying decision is not going to be on price, because you cannot be selling $1,000 apple and then a 50-cent apple. Usually the prices are comparable. So the buying decision might be based mainly on location. Maybe it's parking. Maybe you just parked your car and there was a space next to this particular booth, so you ended up buying from this particular booth. It could be that maybe one of them had a big lineup, so you decided to go to the one that doesn't have a lineup. Or it could be that one booth is more clean and tidy and the other one looks more messy, so you just made that quick snap decision. It could be that the vendor is friendly and smiling, or they have some music in the background, and the other vendor is grumpy and frowning. So you decide to go to the one who looks a bit more happy. So there are these instinctive decisions that we make at a snapshot, mainly based on things that we might not be aware of. But if you dive deeper, you might start being aware of them. So if you are aware of that in the background, then you can start planning for it to see how can you make yourself stand out in a market that has a perfect competition. Now, the next one is monopolistic, and that is when you have multiple sellers offering similar solutions with the perceived or proven difference. So differences can include the quality, the style, the location, or even the brand name. So for example, fast food chains, they're all offering fast food. They might have a bit of variety. It could also be soft drinks like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Even though the products are similar, some people might have preferences. And now we have many local supermarkets that they have their own local brand of soda as well. So in this particular case, it's called monopolistic because they're very similar products. And buyers have an option to choose which one to get. So in this particular case, the buying decision could be based on taste preference. Now, some people can tell right away if they're drinking a Coke or a Pepsi. It could also be brand perception. Some people prefer to buy the well-known brand rather than their local store brand, where other people thinking, then why should I buy a brand when I can get a cheaper one from my local store? So it could be a personal decision about packaging, temporary price reduction, or any other special offer in this particular case. And so now if you know that these are how people will evaluate your products, if that fits your category, you can start planning for it as well. Now, the third type of competition is oligopoly, and that refers to industries where the entry point is very high. So very few companies can compete in that space, as it takes a lot of time and effort to get things going. So for example, think of an automotive company. It's very hard to start your own manufacturing of cars. It takes a lot of background information, technology, and financing. The same thing with any form of transportations like trains or airlines as well. There's a high barrier to entry point. So each company has to create an incentive like discounts or loyalty programs to stay competitive. So they might, for example, let's take airlines. Why would you choose one airline over another? Maybe because one of them is your local country airline, or maybe because they have better policy on luggage, how many luggage you can bring on the airline. It could be some of them have bigger seats or better seat selection. It could also be maybe you have a credit card with the points for that particular airline. So there are many reasons why you might choose one over the other. And last but not least is monopoly. Now, a monopoly is when you have one main seller that dominates the market or one particular location. Now, in a free market, for example, in the Western world, monopolies are usually limited by government policies. So you can only have natural or legal monopolies are generally tolerated. Now, a natural monopoly would include public utilities such as electricity and gas suppliers. In many cases, it could even be the government itself that is operating these services. Or only government authorized organizations. So the entry point is very limited, and there's a lot of legal barriers to really compete in that space. Now, the other one is the legal monopoly, where a company might receive a patent, giving it exclusive use of an invention or a product for a limited period of time. Usually a patent might last around 20 years. So if you have a patent for a specific product, for a specific process, for a specific element in your process, in your company or your product, you can inhibit others from entering into your space and giving you a monopoly to play in that space, and that could be your competitive advantage. So now looking at the list, which one do you think can apply more to your situation? Now, if you're like most businesses, chances are you're on the left-hand side of the slide on the perfect and monopolistic competition. Oligopoly and monopoly are more exclusive unless you have a patent or exclusive agreement with the government or certain location. Chances are you're going to be on the perfect and monopolistic space. So now that you know that these are where you're playing, you can start planning ahead of how do you plan to stay competitive, because chances are if you're successful, someone is going to come in and wanting to play in the same space so that they can also get a piece of the pie. So if you're keeping that on your radar and you're looking for ways to be different or better, you're going to be able to help your audience know why they should be doing business with you. And more specifically, if you're helping them as the guide, how will your products, services, and solutions help them be more competitive? This is how you can change the story to fit your audience. Now, in the next few videos, you'll learn more about competition and how to relate that message to your audience. In the meantime, can you remember what are the 3 primary purposes of a competition slide? Do you remember? Well, here they are. The first one is really more about competitive analysis. So you'll be doing that for yourself, for your teams or investors to show why, where you fit in the competitive landscape. The next one is competitive advantage. That's when you relate that story of what makes you different and better. And the last one is competitive approach. How do you plan to stay competitive in a market that's always changing and where people might always be wanting to come in and play in your space? So your action item for this section really is to continue watching the next few videos. So watch the one on analysis, advantage, and approach. And after that, you'll get to start working on your own competition slide. So go ahead and I'll see you in the next video.